finally, I just wanted to go over CPT and OPT with you quickly. So these are two forms of student work authorization for students that do not require company sponsorship. So they're processed by our Office of International Services. So they're processed internally within the institution. So CPT is one that can be completed during the student's academic program. It's considered part of their curriculum, so they either get course credit for their internship that they complete with you directly, or they're required to take an additional internship course during the semester when they do CPT. For OPT can be completed during the program, but most students opt to do it after they finish after they graduate. So a lot of students will do a combination of CPT during school and then OPT after they finish. So OPT, students are eligible for at least 1 year of OPT after they graduate, and designated STEM fields can actually be eligible for up to 3 years. So they can extend after that first year of OPT, they can extend for an additional 24 months. Recently, the Biden administration expanded the list of eligible STEM fields for OPT. So there are a lot of different fields where students can actually have the option to work for up to 3 years. And again, employers don't have to sponsor them. This is under their F1 visa. These are all F1 work authorizations. So yeah, so also one thing you might not be aware of is actually USC Marshall, the school of our Marshall Business School. Recently, all of their undergraduate programs received a STEM designation. So all undergraduate students from Marshall can also do up to 3 years. So this is a really great option for employers who are looking to hire top talent and they're a little worried about sponsorship. Actually, you can have a candidate for a long time as a full-time employee after they graduate without having to pay for sponsorship or worrying about H-1B or whether the lottery, whether they'll win the lottery. So that's definitely something to consider.
Eddie, thanks. That's really helpful introduction. And I want to just add one or two things to CPT and OPT. You have emphasized this, but I'm going to say 90% of the work related to CPT and OPT is actually done by the university's Office of International Services. They provide seminars and training to students. They take care of a good portion of the application. They're watching the timing issues, which are very important for OPT and CPT. I also want to clarify one small thing, because it's absolutely correct. The employer doesn't have to per se sponsor for CPT or OPT in the sense of running advertisements and things like that. But for the STEM OPT, the way it works is they get 12 months initially, and then they do have to be employed by an E-verified employer. So I strongly encourage employers to join E-verify. That's different from the position I was taking a few years ago, by the way. But E-verify has got its act together. It's reasonably accurate. This is another aspect of immigration law that we actually do separate webinars about, which is immigration compliance. Every single US employer must, now put on my compliance voice, must complete Section 1 of the Form I-9 on day 1 of the hire and verify that the individual is authorized to be employed by day 3 under what we call the Thursday rule. Assuming Monday to Thursday, they have 3 days to verify that person's right to be employed in the United States. That's immigration compliance. Other than a few very rare exceptions, pretty much everybody has to be have their right to be employed in the United States verified, and E-Verify does a reasonably good job of it. One of the benefits that the government gives is that if you are in the E-Verify program, you can get a 2-year extension of the standard 12-month OPT for the STEM fields. And as Addie mentioned, there's a bunch of new STEM fields. I don't know if we still left that in the PowerPoint, all the new ones, but just to sort of one of the areas like data analysis, financial analysis, a lot of those business related areas. And you mentioned as well that the business undergrad is completely STEM, which I was very impressed with, by the way. I did not know that. That's quite something. Hats off to them at having taken that extra step of getting the STEM extension. So basically, the bottom line here is that the employer can hire qualified candidates coming out of university, if they are STEM, if they are E-Verify, for a period of up to 3 years without doing formal sponsorship. There is a requirement to assist the foreign national. The foreign national has to file an extension for the 24 months. I always tell everybody with government filings, make sure that they are timely, because if you're 1 day late, they tend to be a little bit tough. The other concept that I want to deal with is this. You know, whenever we're talking about sponsoring foreign nationals, the obvious question comes up, since I'm a naturalized citizen as well, of course, well, you know, don't we give first priority to Americans? Well, of course we do. There's always priority. The system, when I'm going to explain that sponsorship can be relatively painless, but it's not totally painless. There are steps that one has to pursue. The beautiful thing about CPT and OPT is that is pretty much painless for the employer and no cost. So at least you get up to 3 years, but also to be fair to a student, I mean, if their goal is to stay in the US and, you know, you're just using up their CPT, OPT time, I do tell students, make sure that you have a path towards obtaining lawful status. So, you know, don't get yourself stuck in that situation where, you know, you have to leave because you haven't thought about your immigration. But the other thing that I like to mention, and I'm not a tax specialist, but it is quite substantial, is because these are international students and not residents, there is no Social Security, no FICA, and I believe the other one is FUTA, Federal Unemployment, FICA and FUTA withholding. So yeah, you get a little discount there. It's actually not a little discount. It's an interesting discount, but that's also subject to various tax treaties, but generally an F1 student is exempt from most taxes for a period of up to 5 years. That's, oh, shucks, that always happens to me when I'm on a webinar. My phone is ringing, WeChat's ringing.
Bernie, I actually did see a question pop up. Someone asked a question about they use TriNet for outsourced HR. Do you know if they are enrolled at E-Verify?
You know, it's, yeah, TriNet and other similar services are becoming increasingly popular. And to my knowledge, they are E-Verify compliant. So that is quite common nowadays to have TriNet, which presumably does most of the onboarding. And my understanding is they are. In fact, I would probably be so bold as to say if they're not, they're going to be out of business pretty soon. You know, because this is such a strong aspect. So yeah, I do believe all of these, sorry, whether PEOs, I think they call them, are in fact, and immigration fully understands that employers today are outsourcing this function. So in fact, the reverse is true. I have a small company that actually contacted me last week, and they just switched to one of these entities. And in so doing, that entity was using E-Verify and they were not using E-Verify, and they were heartbroken to discover that some of their employees who'd been there for decades were in fact undocumented, and E-Verify exposed that. So from a compliance point of view, and I'm obviously very big on compliance, you know, there's a delicate balance. On the one hand, yes, I believe one should be able to hire the full range of candidates the company needs, particularly US graduates, who I think are amongst the most valuable entering our workforce. And E-Verify is definitely a key part of that. So let's perhaps move on to discuss some of the non-immigrant visa options. We've OPT actually is one of them, so we've already touched on that, but that's handled almost exclusively